Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only Zebec network. Listen, you know me, I'm super high on this project. I believe this is going to be one of the best projects you can probably invest in. We do have some big boys up there as well, but in terms of a medium cap coin that could definitely, at least, I mean, I'm being generous. I mean, I'm not being generous. I'm being the opposite of generous. I'm being technically really hateful towards this project, but I think you should be looking at a 10x minimum from even this price. Uh, like I said, that would be roughly 5 billion market cap. Right? If we actually do go check to verify, I do believe last time I covered this, it was around 500 million market cap. And let's see, yep, 509 million. So, like I said, I do think a 10x at the bare minimum should be happening, which, like I said, is still a disservice to this project. And yeah, I just sleep very well and comfortably knowing that I actually hold Zebec. Since we're already on this, let's talk about the basics and we'll dive into the technical analysis. So we can see, ladies and gentlemen, in the last month, we have grown 124%. We are currently ranked 116 in the world. Right? I think a lot of people underappreciate this stat. You have to realize there's roughly around, 10,000 or less verified projects. Right? Of course, we have some other ones that sometimes do this, do that, but listen, a lot of projects come and go, but the verified ones, the ones that actually, have some kind of longevity, there's a couple thousand of them, and we are 116th in the damn world. So that's very impressive. Right, already said 509 million markup, 42 million volume in the last 24 hours. And we can see, right, if we go here, this is the amount of holders, ladies and gentlemen. We can actually see we're almost at 80,000 holders, which is crazy because, just 6 days ago, we were at 78,650. So, within a week, roughly a little bit less than a week, we have practically gone up 1,000 holders, which is very impressive. And I do expect probably, I mean, we should most definitely be hitting 80,000 holders by the end of the week. So it's going to be another major milestone for this coin. And I do believe the bandwagon will start happening with this project once altcoin season starts happening. We know altcoins have been kind of slow generally for the most part, right? I know Zebec is kind of an exception, but the reality is a lot of projects have been selling off or kind of moving sideways. There's not too much hype again, but Zebec continues to grow a good amount per day, right? At least at the bare minimum, like 150. So 150 people. So yeah, I mean, that's really good. Really good. Excited to see that with this project. And we can see, right, when we go to the price action, we have been just moving up pretty much ever since July 8th. July 8th was the key indication that we had a change in momentum, right? We had this double bottom here, roughly around 0.0023, right? Somewhere around here, we had a double bottom, and then we had a huge pump to the upside. And ever since then, we've kind of created history, right? We've just been kind of pumping and pumping and pumping. Now, I will say, in recent times, we have overtaken a weekly candle. So it would not surprise me if we see, some type of sell off like 10-15% from here. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything too massive. But usually when we sweep a weekly candle, you can see right here, there usually is some type of manipulation and sell off a little bit. But as of right now, in terms of pure structure, there's zero confirmation that we are overall going to break the trend. Right? We see we are in this narrow trend line. And in terms of where the lows are and the highs are, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, right? Boom, we have a low over here at 0.0047. And then when we go higher up, we have another low over here at 0.0051. So clearly a higher low, right? In terms of the daily candle, clearly a higher low, right? And then boom, guess what? As of right now, we are kind of chilling here. But we don't have this daily candle close yet, so we can't use this as confirmation. But something else we could look at are the highs, because we did have this high right here on the July 30th, right, which was 0.0057. And ladies and gentlemen, we can see we actually closed higher at 0.00587. So we did close higher, right? We had a better daily candle close. So it just shows that we are consistently overtaking and going to the upside, which is absolutely phenomenal, right? And we could technically continue this for some time. Like I said, I do believe once we do reach this area, there would probably be a decent sell off. Nothing too crazy, like minus 70 or 80 or 90%, but a decent sell off, right? I mean, obviously not minus 80 or 70%, but you know what I mean. Probably going to be maximum I would see is a 26% sell off, because we would be back on top of this zone here. But, we will have to see obviously how the future plays out. Overall, it is looking healthy, right? It is looking healthy. It's going to be obviously very important to see how the monthly candle closes. Of course, we still have roughly 3 weeks or more or less to go. So we're not going to worry about that just yet. But man, this project is looking really, really juicy. We are literally just kind of replicating what we had before the big pump, where we just kind of were in this narrow trend line, very, very steep to the upside. And eventually we just, kind of sold off, kind of went sideways a little bit before the big pump went, right? Before the big pump. And I'm telling you, I would not be surprised if we get to these highs, sell off a little bit just to prepare for a big pump. The question is, where would we pump? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's answer that. I like using the Fibonacci tool personally to always see where we could possibly go. Now, if I go and reverse this very, very quickly for us, boom, we can see, right, we have some key levels. Now, the 1.6 is always an underwhelming point. 2.2 is very realistic. 3.2 is fairly realistic, but usually does require a bigger pump. And 4.236 usually doesn't hit very often, but it is still considered relevant enough because some projects do pump very, very well. Now, I do think that the next stop for us would probably be around the 2.2, just because the big altcoin season, we're not going to be getting the most insane pumps. I mean, technically, going up from where we are now to 2.2, an extra 2.35 times your profit is very, very nice, right? Let's not kid anyone. Like, this is very, very nice. But in terms of the craziest of crazy gains, right? You know, that's going to be saved for altcoin season. So for me, my next personal destination will definitely be looking upwards of 1.3 cents. Now, there is always that chance that we could just have a little bit of a higher pump and then pull back to then set up for a massive pump, right? We could technically just go up to a cent and just kind of be fundamental where we go up, we ping, we come back down, maybe something like this, set up like this, and then again, just continue to push, right? Continue to push. Because the reality is, despite how great this project is, you gotta remember that Zebec was roughly going sideways for around 10 to 11 months before it had a huge rally. So that's why, having a very, very big rally might be, kind of shooting for the stars, but at the same time, the quality of this project is really high. So it depends on a few things like partnerships. Definitely, if we got the XRP partnership, we'll definitely be hitting 2.2 sooner than later. But, overall, regardless, I'm still super optimistic. I still think at the bare minimum, we should be hitting 10 billion market cap this cycle. I did say earlier, like, I was doing a disservice to this coin. I was saying 10x. You should be aiming for, if I'm being honest, on top of whatever you already made. So yeah, but that is ultimately it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.